So I want to make 3 points. The first thing is basic SEO does still work. If you just ignore SEO, you're throwing away traffic, especially for a small company, a small local company, in fact. It's often still quite easy for a small local company to rank well. It's hard if you're in the mortgage business or if you're in the insurance business. If you want to rank for the word mortgage, that's a tough thing to do. But if you want to rank for the term rabbit hutch, I think it's probably quite doable. If you wanted to rank for the term, what can I think of the term for me? Think of the term. So a local business, you want to rank for the term.
Violin shop in Denver.
Yes, there you go. Violin shop in Denver. I bet that would be easy. I bet it would be easy. Is that one of your clients? I shouldn't say easy. No, it would be. that would be tough. When I say easy, what I mean is on a relative scale. Still takes work, but when you're talking about, I've worked with insurance companies, I've worked with attorneys, and the law is one of the most difficult online marketing areas, legal. It's incredibly competitive. And so when you talk about that sort of thing, it is quite complicated and quite expensive. But if you're talking about violin shop in Denver, that is a very doable thing. And a violin shop in Denver should be using SEO techniques because they really will work for the violin shop in Denver. Okay, I'm repeating myself here. I just did this morning. I threw it together this morning. Sorry, Dan.
Peter told me he's never done one of these drunk. So we loaded him up with 2 or 3
No, I'm talking too much, and I'm not taking enough time to. So I'll try.
You used to always talk about you Google rodent racing. You still come up.
Oh, rodent racing. I think they come up number 2 now, which is. So yeah, okay. As an example, rodent racing. When I did the second edition of SEO for Dummies, I decided to do a little experiment, and I managed to rank for the term rodent racing in about 3 days. Number 1 on Google in about 3 days. Oh, worldwide. Give me a break. I've tested it in England. In England, I'm number 1. I haven't paid attention to it recently. And the point is, it's very easy. If you have a non-competitive term, such as rodent racing or violin shop Denver, and there are probably multiple violin shops, but nonetheless, most of those guys are not doing SEO. And so SEO does work for these things. And so you have this scale of competitiveness. Down at one end, SEO you absolutely should be doing because it really will work. At the other end, it gets really complicated, really expensive. You've got a huge amount of competition, and at that point, maybe you think you're not going to do it. But for a lot of businesses, especially specialty businesses, then it really does work. Again, I said none of this is truly new. The idea that you should be looking at other things. And nothing is all about. And so when people say it's all about content, actually last time I was here, I offended somebody, didn't I, Dan? Dan. The guy I offended last time I was here, is he here? Is he here?
Do we have any
He's not?
hardcore content here? Okay. I don't think so.
All right, okay, so I can say whatever the hell I want. So it's all about content. So when somebody tells you it's all about content, whenever anybody tells you it's all about anything, you know it's not true. It can't be true because every situation is different. One size does not fit all. And so my belief about content is you do need good content on your website. And it used to be you could buy articles written by some Indian kid for $5 an article, and it might even be almost in English. But it would carry your keywords. It would have keywords in it, and it would pop up in the search engines. Those sorts of games don't play so well anymore. They don't work so well because the search engines are getting so much better at figuring out the garbage. So you do need good. If you're going to have content on your site, it should be decent content. So that's number 1. Number 2, apparently, is content is not king. How many people have heard the phrase, this is when I offended this fella. How many people know the phrase content is king? See? See, it's a popular phrase. It's complete nonsense. It's just, it is. I'll explain why. You can compete without these powerful content-focused strategies. You need content, and the more content you have, the better, but that doesn't mean you need to be in the content building business. What does content is king means? And if anybody has a different opinion of what this means, then I'm happy to hear this. I could never get a straight answer last time.
Well, I will say this. I mean, what was interesting is the last time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example you gave of these attorneys, that was through linking. You were building links. Now, you're using content off-site to build those links. That's one technique. There's a lot of different techniques. But I think it shows that the links were building. The content was a mechanism to carry the links that pointed back to the website. And so the links were doing the work. But obviously they didn't need content on their website. It wouldn't have been bad to have it, but it wouldn't necessarily have made that much difference because it was the links, you did it. So there are different ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one weapon in the arsenal. There are different ways to do things. And this idea that content is king, I think is very misleading. There was something else you said, I've lost already. I don't know what it was. But maybe I'll remember it, I'll come back to it. So I think this is what content is king means. I think it means that content is more important than linking. I've even heard people say linking doesn't matter anymore. I don't know where that idea comes from. Now, just as a bit of background, I don't know how many of you understand this, but the whole Google revolution, as it were, was based on linking. Google figured out that if they looked at links pointing to a website, they could read the text in the links. So if you see a link and it says baseball scores, you can be pretty damn sure that the site it points to is not about dental surgery, right? You've got those words in the link. It's just an easy thing. The other thing is, if that link comes from CNN, it's quite likely that your site is more important than if the link came from Joe's weekly blog or something. So the search engines use links to give them clues about what the content is on the reference site and how important that content is. So linking is hugely important. So this idea that content's more important than linking is very misleading, I think. And I think content is king also means that every site needs to really focus on content and build lots and lots of content. And as you just heard, I can just flip through five slides now. As you just heard, you don't need to do that. So I have my answers for that guy I upset last time. It's a bit late now, but my answers actually would be in the form of questions. And the first question would be, is content important? Well, yes, it is. It is very important. Is more content better than less? Yeah, if you can have 50 pages instead of 10 pages, absolutely, because every page carries keywords. You have another URL, you have a title tag, you have a heading tag, and so on. So yeah, more content is better. Can a site with great content rank well without links? No, it can't. You could have the best content in the world, but if there's no links pointing to the site, it will not rank. I mean, that's just a simple scientific fact. You said that? Yeah? It just won't rank. Even if you have one, okay, if you get one from CNN, that's huge. If you get one from Joe's... If it had great content as well? Yeah, but it would probably rank even if it didn't have great content. Yeah. Yeah. But my point is, even if you have a site without much content, it can still rank through the power of links. I mean, there are a lot of sites that have done this. And the classic example is George Bush's resume. Do people know what I'm talking about? I'm hoping not. So, and this was fixed, it's called Google bombing. A number of years ago now, I don't know, a decade ago or something, a few bloggers created little links that said miserable failure, and they pointed them to George Bush's resume on the whitehouse.gov. And instantly it popped up, well, within a few days, it popped up. So if you search for miserable failure, up would pop George Bush's resume. And I'm not making a political statement or anything, it's purely a technical statement. That's called Google bombing, and it works, and it still works today. They fixed that, so it doesn't work for George Bush anymore. But although then it started working for Hillary, and it started, and at one point it worked for Obama and so on. So other people played the same trick. But that's what links can do. Links are very powerful. You point the links with the right keywords and up pops the site. It's a scientific fact. Oh, I know what I was thinking. Your comment about the garbage content. I was actually writing about this yesterday. There's something in physics called the observer effect. I don't know how many people have heard of the observer effect. It says that basically, if you try to observe something, you will necessarily modify what you are observing. And that's exactly what happened in SEO. The search engines start observing the web, and then people say, oh, the search engines like links. And so now we have billions of garbage links, and I do mean billions. And then they say, oh, the search engines like content. I've got this kid in Indonesia who can write content. And now we have billions of, or maybe hundreds of millions of garbage pages. So it's kind of the observer effect. The search engines have modified the web. Anyway, does every site need great content in order to compete in SEO? No, it doesn't, because of the linking thing. So what it does mean is, for instance, you're an e-commerce store. I have some guys I work with in Australia who do picture frames. And so they have an e-commerce site and they have their basic content. And they didn't really build any new content. Now, what I always say is, do you have more content? Can you beef up the descriptions? Can we get more keywords in there? But what they didn't do was, go all out with a content strategy and start spending huge sums on building the world's best picture frame content, whatever that would be. And that firm is the firm that sent me that quote that I showed earlier on, talking about how now they're in the top 3 or 4. And a couple of years ago, they were nowhere. So you can compete without a really heavy content strategy. What about link bait? Now, link bait, everybody know what link bait is? Probably not. Link bait is the idea that you use something on your website, use some kind of content on your website that is either interesting or entertaining or incredibly useful or intriguing or whatever, something that will attract people to link to it. So you build this thing on your website, whatever it happens to be, whether it's the world's best violin article. I have a client actually who sells violins. He's doing quite well. He's not in Denver though. But so is it an article on violins? Is it some kind of calculating? Calculators were very popular with mortgage companies and so on. So you build something that's incredibly useful, and then people around the web link to it because it is useful. That's called link bait. And that's the best type of link strategy you can come up with. But it's really tough. I mean, every violin shop in the world can't come up with the world's best violin content. They just can't. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and it also isn't usually necessary. So it's all a matter of content, context, excuse me. So why do you not have to have content, and why do you not necessarily start with content? And the reasons are, number one, you may already have enough content. And again, it depends on how competitive the arena is and how much content you have. So if you have next to none on your site, yeah, you're going to need content. So you may already have enough, and so like my frame company, he had enough content already to get started. He didn't need to invest in content. And the other thing is the whole competition thing. Violins in Denver is pretty low competition. You probably don't need to focus that much on content. Yeah.
On that, my company's getting ready to do new websites, and we have a ton of.
I would tend to keep it personally. I would use it. Why not? I mean, I'm not against content. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not against content. Content is good. I think I said this. Content is good, and the more content, the better. So if you have content easily available, I would use it. I would keep it. Use it. Yeah.
Can you just caveat that with the whole unique content?
So there's a concept in SEO, duplicate content, and people talk a lot about duplicate content and how terrible it is. See, I'm gonna come. No, it is a bad thing. The ideal content is content that doesn't appear anywhere else on the web. I think, again, we've got the two extremes thing here. A lot of people have this idea that if you have a page that somehow appears somewhere else on the web, then Google will penalize your website and kick you out of the search index, and that's nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. However, you wouldn't want people taking your content and putting it on 1,000 websites. If all your content appears everywhere else many times, that's the problem. If you have an article that appears here and there, it's probably, it's no big deal. And it's not going to get you penalized. And we know this because if you go to AP, Associated Press, and find some articles on Associated Press, and then do searches for those articles, you will find those articles on hundreds of websites, because that's what they do. They distribute articles. And those articles are not getting kicked out of the index. So that extreme, if you have duplicated content, you're getting kicked out, is not true. But it is the best idea is to have unique content that isn't appearing on other sites. Is that right? Will that work for you? Okay. So this is my final answer on content. I can't remember what I said. You do need content. You need quality content. More is better than less. But you might be able to use the content you already have. And not everybody needs an intensive content strategy. And so to my mind, that's something you decide on during an SEO campaign. You don't necessarily jump right in. Well, if you're in the mortgage business, maybe you do. Maybe you jump right in. Or a lawyer, maybe you jump right in. But for the violin shop, you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, we're going to have to spend a fortune on bulk up your site. You need 50,000 violin pages. And it's something you may decide to do later, depending on how the campaign progresses. Next thing, information architecture. So there's, Dan sent me an article by, what was his name? Rand Fishkin? Talking about information architecture and how important information architecture is. And information architecture is a fancy term for how easy it is to find your way through the website. Is the navigation easy to use? And is it structured nicely and so on? And to my mind, I actually add a few things on to information architecture. I call it IA+. I'm interested in professional site design. I'm interested in messaging, which is something that gets totally missed. And I'm interested in usability, which is closer to information architecture, I guess, usability. So the first thing is professional design. Your site, and we'll go back to the flames we saw earlier on, your site is creating a picture in people's minds of who you are and how professional you are. And if you don't create the right picture, they're not doing business with you. And that's just a simple fact. They're not with the, we saw with the flames earlier on. And it also builds credibility. It's part of the same picture. It builds credibility. So you can tell people, I built this website in the evening in my basement when I got home from my day job. Or you can tell people, I'm this big corporation. You don't know how big I am, but I'm big and professional, and I'll do a good job for you. So professional design is incredibly important. And so, I've got these two. I don't know, I'd love to show you this because you see that the new up here where it says new Porsche, new Westport, it's all flashing. It's lovely, it's flashing. And then that email icon is spinning. It's lovely. I wanted to actually, if I had my laptop, I would show you, but I can't. So who are you more likely to do business with? I mean, this looks like the guy in his basement, and this looks a lot more professional. I don't know, maybe it's a guy in his basement, but I have no reason to think it is. I'm not saying this is the world's best web design, but it has a different feel to it. So, so professional design is very important. The next thing is messaging, and this is a big subject by itself, and I can't get into detail about it really, but I do think a lot of web design is based on the blender model, what I call the blender model. You take everything, you think about what has to be on the website. Well, we need a contact page, and we need an About Us page, and we need a What We Do page, and then you throw it into the blender and mix it up, and then spit out a website. Whereas, really, you should be thinking about the message you're trying to give people, what you're trying to tell people, what you're trying to get them to do. You should be leading people to the actions you need, whatever that is, whether it's buying a product or filling in a form to sign up for a newsletter or whatever. You need to lead people through. And you probably noticed recently, in the last year or two, you see more and more sites like this these days, where it's not a huge block of text. What do we got there? We've got 5 words. Well, 8 words with see the mattress. And yeah, we still have the nav bar at the top, but it's out of the way. You almost don't notice the nav bar. The focus is on the message. We got this thing here, same thing. The focus is on the message. You know what this company is doing within about a second and a half. If you want, you can still click on the products menu up there or click on the store menu, but you've got this message and it's very clear. Same thing, sugar sync, back up and access your files using your existing folder structure. The first line, I think, is pretty clear. The second, a lot of people won't quite get, perhaps. But they're telling you what they're doing very, very quickly. Instead of just throwing a whole bunch of stuff at you, they tell you what they're doing within a second. Same Carbonite. Carbonite used to be really good. They had a really nice, and there's a bit too much going on here now, but and then you come to usability. And usability is about navigation. It's about helping people find what they need on your website. It's about leading them where you want them to go. And so this is an important concept as well. And then actually there are in some cases direct SEO effects. So if you do these things, good web design, good usability, does it help you? I've said all along that it's important in and of its own right. You've got SEO over here, you've got the professional site design and so on over here, and you need them both for different reasons. But actually, in some cases, there is overlap. So professional design, there is actually a potential SEO effect in the sense that the search engines are now trying to figure out if a site is useful to people. In the old days, 3 years ago and beyond, or 4 years ago and beyond, the search engines just cared about keywords. Are the keywords in the site? Is this a good match for the search keywords that this person's entered into the search engine? Now what they're trying to do that, but they're also trying to say, okay, what the next check is this person going to like the site if we send this person to the site? And so they're trying to assess things like, is it a design that pleases people? And that's a very vague term, and there are specifics, which I'll get to in a minute. So sometimes professional design can actually help in SEO. Messaging, I showed you those big messages, the mattress company and so on. I don't think there's anything going on with SEO there. I don't think that sort of thing is helping SEO. I don't believe there's any real overlap. Usability, I know Rand Fishkin wrote this nice article about it. I'm not sold. I don't think the search engines are that sophisticated to be able to look at a website and say, well, this website's easy to use. I don't believe they've reached that point. However, there's something called Google Panda, some of you may have heard of. And Google Panda, this is this whole thing about trying to evaluate the site. And it's not just keywords, but I'll call it their likability. Are people going to like this site if we send them to the site? It may be a perfect match for the keywords they entered, but if they think that the person will not like the site for some reason, they don't want to send them there because they're trying to do the best to provide high quality search results that people want. So I'll give you 3 examples of the things they look for. And what Google actually did was, they had groups of people come into their labs and they would show them websites. And these people would assess them. They'd say, this one sucks, this one's good, this one's okay. And they started to build up a picture of what a good site was. And so they're trying to put that into the algorithm to help them figure out what people like. So here's three things. Thin sites. A thin site is a site there's basically nothing on there. You arrive on the site, maybe the keyword's in the title tag and the URL, but you get on the site, there's nothing there. Why am I there? So that's where a thin site is, a site with just basically no reason to be on the site. Duplicated affiliate sites. So you have these sites where People are, they're affiliates for merchants. They get a cut if they can send somebody to the merchant. And basically they're taking all the merchant's content and duplicating it, and there's no reason to be on that site. Why would Google show you site B when it could show you site A where the original content was? And another issue is heavy advertising. That was a specific thing. If people land on a web page and there's a huge amount of advertising at the top, and there's no real content, they have to dig down through the page to get to the content. That's another thing people don't like, and it's something that the Google Panda may flag as something that's worth kind of kicking you down in the search results. Now, linking is a special case. Linking has really changed dramatically over the last couple of years. The search engines are much better at figuring out bad links. And so I think linking is moving towards, well, away from the games that people play, towards PR and towards link bait, coming back to the link bait thing. So I always tell my clients there are two types of links. There's the real link and there's the fake link. And I'm not talking technically as far as the HTML goes. They're both the same. What I'm talking about is the real link is a link that's on your website. Excuse me, a real link to your website is a link that somebody else has placed because they think your site is worth linking to. A fake link is on their site because you want it there. There's some benefit to that person linking to you, often a monetary benefit. And Google doesn't like people selling links, but there's a whole range of monetary benefits to links. There are sites that just say, well, give us $50 and we'll give you a link. But there are also services like these Indian companies where you say, I need 1,000 links, here's a couple $100, and they own hundreds of websites and they put links across the sites. Those are kind of fake links. Those links are only there because you want them there. They're not there because the site owners really want them there. They don't care if it's you or anybody else giving them money to create the link. And so this is the difference between the real links and the fake links. And the search engines are much better at figuring out the difference now. In particular, because the disavow tool, have people heard of the disavow tool? The disavow tool is something in Google Webmaster where you can go to Google and you can say, oh, these links pointing to my site are garbage links. I didn't do it, it was my web development firm that did it. I would never have done it, honestly. And so what they've tricked people into admitting, into confessing that they've put garbage links up. And so now they have this big map of the web of where all these garbage links are coming from. So, and they should have done it years before, really, to put a stop to it. But anyway, so here's a few ways to build real links. There's the low-hanging fruit, and that is, who do I know who will give me a link? My mother, my brother, my colleague, who's going to give me a link? And often, actually, the low-hanging fruit, especially for a local business in a non-competitive arena, low-hanging fruit can actually get you a long way. And there's PR, and I think this is the way the linking business is moving. It's moving away from the Indian firms that will give you, 1,000 links for a couple $100, and it's moving towards the PR picture. So basically, you start off with your USP. This is I don't know how many people have worked and done any PR campaigns, but this is the essential picture. You come up with your USP, your unique selling proposition. What's so special about my website? Why would somebody buy from me instead of buying from Amazon? Now, once you know that, then you come up with a hook. Why would somebody write about my website? Do I have a nice little story that I can pitch to people that would interest their readers? In the old days, you go to editors, you go to the radio shows, the TV shows, newspapers, and you pitch to the editors and say, I think your readers or your listeners would be interested in my story because, and that's your hook, whatever that happens to be. And then you go out and you push this story out there, in particular to blogs. I mean, whatever subject you are related to, whatever subject your site is related to, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands of blogs related to that. I have a client who sells wool, he sells yarn, and a lot of it as well, millions of dollars worth. and it's a home-based business, and he has 7 kids in that home, poor guy. And so we actually got his kids. We figured we might as well make some use of them, and we sent them out onto the web looking for blogs, and they came back with thousands of blogs related to knitting, to macrame, to crochet, to handicrafts. And so once you build a list like that, then you start going to the blogs with your hook, and you say, hey, I think your readers would be interested in my site because whatever it happens to be. And in his case also, a lot of these blogs have, on the blog roll, you know, the list of links on the side, they'll have places to buy yarn. And so that was one of the questions we had for the kids. We built a spreadsheet for them. Tell us if they have this list of links, and if they do, is this website in there? And if not, then you contact them and you say, would you add us to that list? Basically you go out and you pitch these people, and there's a whole range of things you can do. There's, I think your readers would be interested because, and then there's, hey, how about holding a contest? I'm going to give away a prize which consists of 10 balls of yarn a month for a year, and I'm going to hold a drawing. And I know people who've done this. I had a client, the violin guy actually sells all sorts of musical instruments. He was very frustrated about a competitor of his who ranked incredibly well in the search engines, and my client actually had much better content, but still his competitor ranked much higher with much worse content. But he had all these links because every month he gave away sets of strings. He would hold drawings and give away strings, and he would go to the bloggers and he would say, hey, don't forget my drawing this month. Here's the page, and all the bloggers would link to it, and they'd tell their readers. So it's a very powerful strategy. What else have I got here? Move toward the PR model. Oh, I mentioned this earlier on. I do think the changes in Google, the way they're sort of eliminating all the garbage links, in a way it's making it easier because you no longer need tens of thousands of links. And I would have clients, we'd look at their competitors, and they would have 10, 20, 30, 40,000 links. I was like, wow, how do we compete with that? And then the way you compete is you go buy links. And that's why, by the way, that's why people bought links, because Google actually rewarded it. People rewarded people for buying links. They didn't mean to, they didn't want to, but that's how the mechanism worked, and so they did. So in a way, it's getting easier. A smaller number of links can get you further than they used to. So, what is my summary? SEO is nowhere near dead. The basic SEO techniques do still work and shouldn't be ignored. Content's good, but it's not king. You may be able to succeed with the content you have. Site design was always important. It's becoming more important, and linking is moving towards a PR model. And I'm just going to put that up there again. I mentioned earlier on that if anybody's interested in the SEO course, let me know. Either email me or give me a card. And are there any questions? The quality of the video. Well, from an SEO perspective, the video itself isn't going to help. Now, the keywords around the video, so if you optimize a video to try to get that video ranked in the search engines, you're essentially using text to optimize the video to bring it up. And so the actual text associated with the video is just how the search engine kind of evaluates what that video is. But there's very little in the way of, I don't think the search engine like Google does, it transcribes the video, and it does a terrible job right now. And it's not clear they're actually using the words in the video for SEO. So I would have to ask, what is the benefit of a low quality video on a website? I don't think there's much benefit.
People want to look at videos. They want to quickly sum up who you are as a business by watching your video. I think it's another way of doing content.
Well, perhaps I don't know what you mean by low quality video.
Oh, I was just curious what you think about people who do the iPhone video standing at their desk. They don't have a microphone on. It sounds like they're in a tin can. They're trying to explain their product. You can kind of hear it, but not really.
Well, from an SEO perspective, there's probably no difference. From a professionalism standpoint, I think it depends on the context, doesn't it? I mean, it depends who you are and what image you're trying to portray. I don't know. Without seeing where that video has been placed, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that really. So.
Follow up a video question. Does having video, because does Google or does search engine know that you have video, will that bring you up? Because when you search and they have the images, web, video, they're different sectors of results. Will having a video bring you up?
It might, but it probably won't unless you try. And so how do you get into that section? And people do that. They try to optimize their images and optimize their videos to come up high in the search results, and that's a great thing to do. So what do? You make sure you make sure you have keywords around it. You probably want a heading tag up above. You probably want, with keywords in it, you probably want keywords around it, in the body text around it. You probably want the keywords in the page that is sitting on, that the video is sitting on. You probably want it in the URL and the title tag and so on. You might want to enter metadata as well, like for images. You know what I mean by metadata. There's the keywords and the title and the caption and so on stored in the image. Google does read those, by the way. It's not clear how much weight it gives them, but they have said they do read the metadata in images. Yeah, people do try to get into those areas, and you have to do some work to get in there to make it work. Probably, I mean, over the years, a lot of these things have changed. So, for instance, reciprocal linking. And reciprocal linking is where, you link to me and I'll link to you and everybody's happy. That used to be very, very powerful. In the early days, I've seen that do incredible things. But it hasn't worked for many years. So it goes through these phases, and I would say that, the footer text can't be terribly valuable. It can't be terribly valuable anymore. Does it carry some weight? I'm sure it carries some weight. I would do it. I don't think there's any reason not to do it, but I doubt if it's as valuable as it used to be. That's a good question. But I think that's a different thing. So thin content means you arrive on the site and it's like, why am I here? This is just a waste of time. What these guys are doing is they're chunking their data and they're delivering it bit by bit. Instead of throwing a whole page full of text for you to read, they give you one message, and then you decide to go this way or down or that way, and then they give you another little bit of a message, and then another bit and another bit. And I think that's very different from, I don't think that comes under the thin content. I think that's just a different way of presenting the data. And I think it's a powerful way to do this, which is why so many companies are doing it now. It works, because it makes it really easy for people to understand what's happening. And I've seen so many websites where you land on the site. I remember talking to a client a few years ago, and I said, what am I supposed to do? And they say, well, you need to, well, we really want you to see the demo video. Where's the demo video? Oh, well, it's down. If you go down on the right-hand column, go down to the bottom, it's down. And it's like, whoa, well, why don't you put it up front? So I think that's a different thing. Content curation is actually one of the strategies. When I do write about content and different content strategies, and again, you didn't hear me say never use content. And there are valid content strategies, and one of them is content curation. And content curation, by the way, just to explain this, because I assume some people don't know, content curation, well, actually, if you think of Pinterest is essentially a content curation site, isn't it? So Pinterest, people go around the web and they grab pictures around the web. It's an image content curation site. So content curation is like, it's like you have a blog and you talk about what's going on other sites, and perhaps you get a snippet of a paragraph that you put in your site and then link back to that site and so on. No, I think that's a very valid SEO strategy. Absolutely. So if you're basically rebuilding the site and you don't want to lose your rankings, So if you're switching from design, well, the first thing to consider is the URLs. You can change the URLs, but if you do, you should use 301 redirects. You know about 301 redirects? A 301 redirect basically tells the search engines, it's a little command that says, this page is gone and now it's over here. And so the search engine comes in and just jumps over to the new one. So you need your 301 redirects. And then if you make sure, in fact, probably the easiest thing is to transfer the URL, the title tags and the description tags. And so you could switch out all the underlying code but have a different, you keep the underlying code but have a different design, and it shouldn't matter that much except from the Panda perspective. If it's a better design, then it may help a little bit. But if you still have the same URLs, title tags, description tags, although description tag, by the way, Google says they don't use for ranking anyway, and heading tags use H1s, as long as you have a site that sort of matches or exceeds the basic SEO components on the old site, and you do your 301 redirects, it probably shouldn't be a problem. Where I've seen problems are where people switch out content, and the content actually isn't as good as the old content, and where they don't do 301s, and all of a sudden the entire site structure is different, and Google loses the pages and so on. That's where I see problems. Well, it is important. It's important from a user standpoint, absolutely. And that comes down to the whole issue of conversions. Why bother doing a lot of SEO work to bring people to the website if you can't convert them, if they're not doing what you want them to do? And so from that perspective, usability is very important. From the perspective of SEO, does improving the usability of the site really improve SEO? Bump you up in the actual search rank? Does Google say, oh, this is a really usable site, we'll give them a couple of positions in the search? I personally don't believe it. I don't think there's much kick there. I don't think there's much, because I think that's too complicated a thing to assess.
Can Google's algorithms not analyze the depth of information, depth of content, how many pages deep information is in a site?
Yes, and they do. They certainly used to. In fact, they used to say in SEO, don't go too deep. You don't want to go down 10 levels. You know, like in the URL structure in the path and the file path. You don't want to go deep down. I hear people say these days it doesn't matter that much. I don't really know. But I still think that's still quite different from usability. Usability it's hard enough for humans to assess usability, isn't it? I mean, we have usability labs and so on. We put people in the labs and you see what they do on the site. Whoops, we made a mistake there, let's change it. I think it's very difficult for the search engines to figure something like that out. I mean, they can do it in their labs, but can they do it for 1 trillion pages? I don't see how they do it. I might be wrong, but I don't see how they do it. Well, I think you raised two issues there, actually. I'm hearing two issues, because the first issue is, should you get a link from the organization you're a member of? And absolutely. Yeah. And then I suspect there's another question, will it help? Yeah. And absolutely. And actually there's another level, the whole issue of relevance. And so the idea is a relevant link is more valuable than a non-relevant link. And I can kind of accept that. I think it's exaggerated. I think, so the idea is, if you have a website selling rabbit hutches, and you get a link from a forum that is about rabbits, that's a great thing because it's relevant. I can accept that, I see that. If you have a link from Joe's real estate blog, is that relevant? Well, you could argue it's not relevant, but maybe Joe just bought a rabbit hutch for his kids. And maybe that link has the words rabbit hutch in it. So I'm not a huge believer in the idea that you should, and you sometimes hear this, oh, you should only go after relevant links. I think it's complete nonsense. Even links that don't appear to be relevant at some level can still carry some value if they have keywords in them, and they can pass on the page rank, which is kind of a voting value. So yes, you should get that kind of link.